Thanks for joining me for this wrist strengthening and mobility flow. It's not going to be super long, but it will be a focus on the wrists. So let's get started. So I'll invite you to start in a tabletop position. So hands roughly underneath the shoulders, knees roughly underneath the hips. I'm going to start with some cat-cows. So really get ourselves set up. Make sure you're pushing away from the ground, pressing into each of the pads of your fingertips, taking that pressure off the wrists, and so making sure you're not collapsing into your shoulders like this, pushing away from the ground. Then we'll start with the cat-cow. So on an inhale, take a deep breath in, dropping your belly, lifting your tailbone and crown of your head to the sky. And on an exhale, doing the opposite, curving in, bringing your belly up to your spine, tilting your pelvis down, head towards the ground. On an inhale, back to drop the belly. And on an exhale, rounding through your spine. I'll invite you to take a few more of these with your breath. Maybe you stick to this traditional cat-cow, or perhaps you want to take a little bit of different movement, just whatever your body needs today. Maybe you go in circles, one way and the other, going forwards and backwards, warming up the wrists, back, the spine. Just really getting comfortable with the movement today on your mat. Maybe you bring your heels down to your child's pose, and on an inhale, come back up and forward. Just taking the time. Finding any niggles in your body. Maybe there aren't any. Just great. Warming up. This already might be a little bit more on the wrists than you're used to. We don't often spend time here day to day, but in yoga, it's all about the wrists a lot of the time. So I'll invite you to sit back on your heels. Maybe sit on a block if that's more comfortable for you. And just take that time off your wrists and really warm through your wrists, circling them one way, maybe inwards. Hearing those crackles, if you've got any. Just our body waking up. And then circling the other way. And I'll invite you to just close and open your hands. Just really mindful. It doesn't have to be super quick. You might want to do it as quick as you can. But this is really waking up your fingers, palms of your hands, but also up your forearms as well. Our wrists don't work in isolation. We want to warm up everything that's there. On an inhale, I'll invite you to come back to your tabletop position and just slowly but deliberately move back and forth. So shifting your weight over the front of your fingers and then coming back off them, giving them a bit of a break. Starting here to just get that our weight through our wrists, encouraging the muscles to activate and strengthening what we're going to be able to do. And I'll invite you to move your hands out to the side, so turning your fingertips out to the outsides of your mat, maybe one to the left, one to the right. And if that's too much for you to do all at once, you're welcome to do one wrist, then the other. But really taking this time to focus on how our wrists are feeling, our forearms. And you might even want to dial your hands back, so rotate your hands outwards so your fingers are dialed towards your knees, which can be quite intense if you're not used to it. So you could go easy on yourself, listen to your body and where it's at. And this might not be something that's accessible to you today, and that's not a problem. You can just dial them as much as they go, keeping that movement, giving your wrists the opportunity to wake up in all directions. available to them. And this gives us a really nice stretch down the forearms, particularly when they're tight. And if you're not feeling anything, it's not a problem. Not all of us do. We all hold our tension in different places. Okay, when you're ready, before we maybe go on, you might want to sit back. Just take some pressure off your wrists. Maybe just gently encourage them forwards and back, just to give them a bit of stretch. Take them out of that position they've been in. And we're going to go back into that tabletop. And we're going to do something a little bit different. So what we're going to do is tent the fingers. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we're going to lift our palms up. We're going to put our fingertips on the ground and lift up. And here we're really strengthening our fingers as well as our wrists. And you've got a lot of options here. If this is quite a lot for you, you're not used to it, the further back you bring your weight, the less weight is going through your wrists and your fingers. And as you encourage your weight forward, you're putting more pressure on those fingers and wrists. So there's a lot more weight going through them. And we can come back and forth here. Actually, that's really quite difficult. You might just do one at a time. I don't know, if you're anything like me, I sit at a computer all day and my wrists do not get a lot of love. So this can be quite intense, even though it feels like we're not doing a lot. Okay, so back into this tabletop with tented fingers. We're going to extend the left leg out behind us. There is always the option, if you're feeling that this is a little bit too much, you bring your palms flat to the ground, pushing into your finger pads. You can even put your hands in fists as well, and put your knuckles on the ground. Some people find that this relieves a lot of tension in their wrists. And how does it feel having one leg up? Try and keep your hips level, so you don't want to be collapsing into either one of your hips. And you try and keep that distribution even between your arms. And if you're feeling like you want a little bit more, you might keep your hands tented, you might keep them down, and you'll extend that right arm out in front of you, which could be quite a lot. So I encourage you to have a play around with what works for you. Maybe today is the day you're pushing yourself, so you give it a go. And then on an exhale, bring that back down. You might want to pull off your wrists, push them together, backs of your palms together. Just whatever movement your body feels like it needs. Or if you're ready to crack on, get back into that top position and we'll do the same on the other side. So again, we're tenting our fingers, or there are options to keep your hands flat or knuckles to the ground. I'll do knuckles to the ground on this one. I know it's not something I'm super strong at, so it's great to practice. And I'm going to lift that right leg up behind me. Trying to keep that pressure equal between my hands and my hips level, extending the crown of my head forward and the sole of my foot back. And I exhale, I'm going to try and reach with my left arm, reaching forwards and holding this. This is a lot about core engagement as well, so we're concentrating on a lot here. Do another couple of breaths before coming back down to tabletop position. I'm going to come off onto my knees, just give my wrists a little bit of a break. You might even prefer to go into a child's pose at this point. Stretch out your wrists. This can be really nice, and you've got lots of options here. You can relax your arms in front of you, elbows on the ground. Maybe you want to extend your hands forward, reaching. And again, maybe tenting your fingers, stretching through the top of those wrists. And then inhale, come back up. You might want to come back up through tabletop or head straight into your downward facing dog. I'll encourage you to pedal the legs, take any movement that feels natural to you right here. If you're feeling quite a bit of pressure through your wrists, you might want to press down through each one of your fingertips, which can encourage the weight pathway out, taking that pressure off the wrists. And if that still feels like a lot, we've got the option to use blocks. So I quite like to use blocks underneath my hands, just to give myself a little bit of extra space. It changes a bit of the pressure, takes that pressure off the wrist. I encourage you to explore what your body needs today. Maybe try it if you've never put your hands on blocks in a downward facing dog. How does it feel? On an inhale, give you the option of coming forward into a plank. You've got the choice of you keeping your knees raised or lowering them. Keeping that strength, pushing away from the ground with your hands. Drawing your shoulders so out and away from your head so you're not collapsing and hunching. And then, whether you've got blocks or not, you might want to move them out of the way, keep them underneath you. And I'm going to suggest that you move your right knee, so your right foot out to the side, so almost like it's perpendicular to the mat, and come into a supported side plank variation. So we're on our right wrist or right hand, and our left hand's coming all the way up to the sky. You might want that feeling of your hips drawing forward. We want our hips in line with our foot, and our left toes are dialing forwards. And then on an inhale, we're going to use our core, come up to gate pose variation. Might want to circle your wrists here. Bit of light relief. I'm going to take a bend to the other side. So right arm up to the sky, lightly using your leg to support you, but not collapsing your weight. Draw your hand up, keeping your chest open. Maybe your gaze is to the sky. And on an exhale, back to your gate variation, and down, back into your supported side plank. And exhale into swizzle back into our tabletop position. And you might be feeling that there's a little bit of a difference between your right wrist and your left wrist now we've done that. And then I'm going to push this even a little bit further and head up into our downward facing dog. We're going to create some energy, lift our left leg up to the sky, toes dialed down, keeping your hips as level as you can. And on an inhale, we're going to move forward, the top of our body into this plank position with our knee drawing towards our left elbow. And again, you're trying to keep that pressure even, back up into downward facing dog, between your wrists. And we're going to go again, top of the body into plank position, but your knee this time is coming to your right elbow. And back up. Final one, we're going to do knee into the nose, as far forward as we can, and stepping our left foot forward into a runner's lunge position, shining your chest. You can of course lower your back knee. I'm going to plant the right hand down on the ground and take a twist. Left arm up to the sky. Maybe your gaze goes with it. Maybe you're gazing down at that right. And on an exhale, come back down and back into your downward facing dog. And here you've got the option, come off your wrists, Maybe you take a child's pose or a tabletop. Maybe you're happy chilling in your downward facing dog. I'm going to take a little bit of movement. Quite like put my wrists the other way, tops of the hands to the ground in tabletop, just to stretch them out in the opposite direction before we do the other side. So when you're ready, I'll invite you to join me in a tabletop position. Again, hands roughly underneath the shoulders, knees roughly underneath the hips, and we're pushing away from the ground. And now this time, we're going to move our left leg, so our left foot is coming out to the side and off the mat as we flip round, toes dialing to the side of the mat into this gate variation. Supported side plank. We're going to use our core to lift us up into this gate pose variation. Before taking an inhale and going down into the side bend, either resting your hand on your leg. If you don't feel like you need the support, you can bring your hand round your back to sit on your left hip. And on an inhale, unfurl, come back up to this gate variation, and down again into your side plank. Looking up to the sky, or even down at your hand. Before we exhale, come back to that tabletop position and head straight into the downward facing dog. We're going to go straight into this other side, so lifting your right leg up to the sky, toes dialed down, hips level, trying to keep the pressure even between both hands. And on an exhale, bring your upper body into plank position, your right knee to your right elbow. Back up. And exhale, your right knee to your left elbow, and back up. Final one, knee to nose, everything in plank position, squeezing all together before you bring your foot forward into that runner's lunge. Lifting your chest to the sky, maybe you come up onto your fingertips. Maybe you lower your back knee. Plant your left hand down on the ground, pushing away from the ground and bringing your right arm up to the sky. And perhaps your gaze follows. For an exhale, come back round and take a well-earned child's pose. Or a downward facing dog, feeling like you really want it. But winding down, taking this time for yourself, off your wrists. We've worked them hard. When you're ready, on an inhale, you might want to come forward and bring yourself into a seated position of your choice. That might be cross-legged, like I am, with always the option to sit on a block or a blanket just to raise the hips. Extending, reaching the crown of your head up to the sky, extending your spine. Take a deep breath in and let out with a sigh. And I'll invite you to do that 2 more times in your own time. You might want to take some wrist movements. Work them hard. It's not something we often do in day-to-day life. So it might be really new for your body. You've done such a good job. You've made time for yourself, focusing on what your body needs. and listening to your body, taking the right variations for you today. On your next inhale, I encourage you to bring your arms up to the sky, looking up to see them as they touch above your head, capturing all of that energy you've created for yourself today, and then drawing all of that energy down into your heart. Thinking about how much your body has done for you today, but also thanking yourself for the choice you made for your body and to strengthen it today. Namaste.